Good afternoon, everyone. I can see a few of you are joining at the moment. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes to give everybody an opportunity to join. And once I can see that a few groups have joined, we'll start the session. So just give us a few more moments. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome to this event about specialist courts as part of our County Court Virtual VCE Legal Studies Week. My name is Anna and I'm the manager of the Court Integrated Services Program at the County Court, and I'll be moderating the event for you all today. Before we get started, I'd like to invite Terry Stewart, our County Koori Court coordinator, to commence our Welcome to Country. So handing over to you, Terry.
Thanks, Anna. Good afternoon, everybody. Like Anna said, my name's Terry Stewart and I coordinate the County Koori Court. I'm also a proud Aboriginal woman. Before we begin today's presentation, I would like to start by acknowledging Victoria's First Nations peoples and their ongoing strength in practicing the world's oldest living culture. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waterways on which we all live and work. And lastly, I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. In Victoria, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities continue to strengthen and grow with the ongoing practice of language, law and cultural knowledge. As a community, we must recognise the contribution of First Nations peoples and communities to Victorian life and how this continues to enrich our society more broadly. I acknowledge the contributions of generations of Aboriginal leaders who have come before me, who have fought tirelessly for the rights of our people and community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Terry. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that all of our attendees in this event will have their cameras and mics turned off. So we won't be having people on the screen to see when you're asking questions, although what we ask for you to do is utilise the Q&A box. So underneath, there's a little Q&A button towards the bottom of the Zoom window. So at any time during the event, please press on the Q&A box and ask your questions. And my role will be to reload those questions through to our panelists. So please ask anything that you like. There are no silly questions. We encourage you all to ask as many questions as possible. So to introduce our panelists for today. So on our panel today, we have Her Honour Judge Lawson. She is our judge in charge of the County Court. We have Christy Rowe, our Director of Specialist Courts, and Terry, who you've just met, Terry Stewart, who's our County Koori Court Coordinator. So I'm now going to pass over to each individual panelist to tell you a little bit more about themselves. I'm firstly going to pass over to Her Honour Judge Lawson.
Thanks very much, Anna. My name is Judge Irene Lawson and I'm a judge of the County Court, and I have been since 2002. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which I am seated currently, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present. I'm really thrilled to be able to speak today In 1973, I elected to study commercial and legal studies. It had never been on the curricula for secondary school students in Victoria, and I thought that it might be something of interest, something different, and therein started a really interesting journey for me. I went to a school that was very disadvantaged. It wasn't usual for students to go to university, but because of my passion and love for legal studies, I ended up at Melbourne University Law School. I did a law degree, and therein began a really interesting journey. And I'm very fortunate that currently I occupy one of the most interesting judicial positions in Australia. The County Koori Court is the only court in the intermediate division, so that's a trial division in all of Australia, states and territories, where we have a Quarry Court division. It is part of our court, and it's an essential part of our court. We have on our court myself and the elders and respected persons, but we also have other Aboriginal workers, including Terry and Shirley, Annesley and Kylie Spencer, who assist me in being able to conduct the Koori Court. What's different about the Koori Court is that it is a much less formal court, but it nonetheless still delivers justice the same as our other courts insofar as sentencing is concerned, but in a different way. And why is that? It's because traditionally Aboriginal people have felt very alienated from the legal system, and so in part as a response to the need to reduce the overrepresentation of Aboriginal people in Victoria, this system was developed, and it came from community. Aboriginal community have a vested interest in wanting to change the way for people who are involved in the criminal justice system. So to be a part of the Quarry Court, the matter has to be proceeding by way of a plea of guilty. A person has to consent to go into the Quarry Court, and they must be Aboriginal and culturally eligible. So they must be Aboriginal, they must be accepted as being Aboriginal by community, and they must wish to proceed before their elders and respected persons. In a normal court, a plea of guilty is very formal. The person is arraigned, that is, the charges are put to the person, they plead guilty. Barristers appear for the prosecution and tell the court what the crime's about, and then defence will say what the story is in terms of what the accused person has done, and then the judge will formally sentence. The Quarry Court's different because we hold what's called a sentencing conversation. Instead of the barristers talking about their client, it is an informal discussion around a table involving the judge and the elders. And I'll let Terry talk a little bit more about the elders and their role. But essentially, it's about providing an accessible form of process so that people understand properly what is happening to them. They also have a voice so that they can talk about what it is that's motivating them to offend or has led to their offending behaviours, and also to look to the future to try to address what those underlying offending behaviours are. And so I think at this stage it might be a good idea to hand over to Terry, and she can talk about the role of the elders in the court.
Thank you, Judge Lawson. I will pass over to Terry to introduce herself in a little bit more detail and to give us some more information. And I'd also like to give Christy an opportunity, Christy Rowe, Director of Specialist Courts, to introduce herself also. So handing over to you, Terry.
Thanks, Anna. So like I introduced myself before, Terry Stewart, and at the moment, for the last 9 years, I've coordinated the County Koori Court. But prior to that, for over 30 years, I've worked with Aboriginal people, my people, in the criminal justice system. I have worked for Aboriginal community organisations, the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service. I've been a youth worker in in my time as well, working with young Aboriginal people. I've worked extensively with young Aboriginal people in custodial settings for a number of years before heading over to the Koori Courts. I worked for, started in the Koori Courts at the Broadmeadows Magistrates Court as the Koori Court officer, and I worked there for 10 years assisting Aboriginal people coming before the court, not only in the Quarry Court, but in the mainstream court. I then moved over in 2012 to the County Koori Court, where I've worked with judges and elders and other support people, assisting Aboriginal people who appear before the court. The Koori Court allows for a more in-depth exploration of cultural and personal context relating to the person's offending, and is able to offer the court is able to deliver a more culturally appropriate sentence. The role of the elders in the Koori Court process, or in the sentencing conversation as we call it, is to provide to work alongside or sit alongside the judge and talk to the person who is appearing before the court about their offending behaviour. In the County Koori Court, obviously we're in the higher jurisdiction, so we see a lot more serious offending. The elders' role is, like I said, is to talk to about the accused person about their offending behaviour and the impact that it's had, not only on the community, the victims, if there is any victims involved, but also on the Aboriginal community in general, that their behaviour not only has an impact on them, their victims, their family, but all of us as Aboriginal people. Their role is also to denounce the behaviour, but also to support the person and help them see that there is light at the end of the tunnel if they want it. There is support out there, and that they are supported, and that we have a number of support organisations that can assist the person to make changes in their life to prevent them from coming back before the court. So they play a very, very important role to be able to advise the judicial officers of any cultural issues that may arise, background of the person that is appearing before the court, and what is available out in the community. But there's also the Koori Court officer who plays a very important role as well. So the Koori Court officer is there to support not only the accused person, but their families. Their role is to make sure that the court all runs smoothly, that the appropriate elders are sitting in the court, and that they assist the judicial officers in knowing who's supporting the persons in the court. So, yeah, I think that's about it from me.
Thank you, Terry. We've covered some really good questions here. I think that a lot of our attendees will be interested in around, what is the County Koori Court? How is it different to mainstream court? How do our Quarry Court officers and our elders, how are they involved in the process? I'd like to move on to introducing our Director of Specialist Courts, Rowe, so that she can talk to us a little bit about her role and I guess what her experience has been managing the Quarry Court and supporting the Quarry Court the Koori County Court. Christy?
Thanks, Anna. Welcome, everybody. My name is Rowe. I'm the Director of Specialist Courts. I'd also like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land, acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I've worked within various therapeutic jurisprudence court environments for the past 15 years. And prior to that, my roles were predominantly in drugs policy and as a forensic drug and alcohol counsellor. So in terms of my current role, essentially, I'm responsible for managing the delivery and planning of specialist courts activities, So that really includes setting the direction of existing services and also leading the development and implementation of new services and new therapeutic jurisprudence approaches. You've heard a little bit today about the incredible work of the County Koori Court, which is a specialist court that's been in operation at the County Court since 2008. We're extremely proud of the County Koori Court and the work that it does. In addition to Koori Court, we also have some exciting new specialist courts developments that are coming to the County Court over the next 12 months. So these include the Mental Health Advice and Response Service, which is scheduled to launch in November this year. This service is a partnership with Forensicare, which through providing on-site clinical mental health advice to the court aims to improve mental health outcomes for court users while also reducing some of the delays associated with court proceedings. We also have the Court Integrated Services Program scheduled for implementation in the County Court in January. The Court Integrated Services Program is a bail support program which aims to address underlying factors that contribute to offending behaviour to reduce the likelihood of reoffending. So through this program, participants with complex needs are engaged through individualised case management, short-term assistance and priority access to services. And finally, we've got the County Court Drug and Alcohol Treatment Court pilot, which is coming to the County Court scheduled for implementation in 2021. So drug courts are a specialised jurisdiction of the court, which is responsible for the sentencing, supervision and treatment of offenders with significant substance abuse issues who meet the relevant eligibility criteria. And drug courts really provide a targeted, intensive and evidence-based approach to entrenched drug and alcohol related crime. So it's a bit of an overview of some of the things that we've got coming to the space. The things that I love the most about my role is really the opportunity to be innovative and to do something new. It's extremely exciting to be able to make the community a safer place by helping to reduce reoffending, but also to see the really fantastic outcomes that are possible and can be achieved for people who are entrenched in the justice system due to their complex support needs. The specialist courts programs that I mentioned all represent really critical collaborations between the justice system and the community support sectors. And they really highlight how when we work together to address the issues that sit behind offending and particularly relating to trauma, we can achieve really great outcomes for people coming through the justice system. We can help to break the cycle of intergenerational offending and we can really help to make the community a safer and more meaningful place.
Thank you so much for that, Christy. I encourage you all out there to ask us some more questions about specialist courts and the different work that we're doing in that space. And I'll summarise what some of those initiatives are for you to maybe help you structure some of those questions. We have had a couple of questions come through, so I will put them forward to our panellists in a moment. But so just to summarise what our panellists have covered, so we have our County Koori Court, I'm getting mixed up today, which you're welcome to ask any more questions about. We have the Court Integrated Services Program, so we also call that the KISP program, which is a bail support program, and it's mostly in case management for individuals on bail. So you can ask any questions around that. Christy also highlighted our mental health advice and response service. So that's for individuals coming into our court who have mental health related issues that might be related to their offending behaviour. And lastly, our drug court, which is primarily for individuals that have substance abuse issues or drug or alcohol related issues. And it's a longer term rehabilitation program in conjunction with the court to help individuals manage their substance use and their offending behaviour. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a good summary. Please utilise the Q&A box below and ask questions. Again, there are no silly questions. The first question we have in the box today is, do judges in the Koori Court only work in the Koori Court?
I'm happy to answer that, Anna. No, judges who sit in the Quarry Court division are usually judges who are specialising in crime, who elect to sit in the division. They've undergone specialist cultural awareness training as well as additional training so that they can be able to sit with the elders and understand the processes involved. Quarry Court does have a lot of cultural information contained within it. And I forgot to say, one of the biggest differences in terms of the actual court itself is that they look very different from a traditional court. We have the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags present in the courtroom. We have artworks that have been created specifically for the room, and also the table at which the judge and the elders sit with the participants and their support people and counsel and the Quarry Court officer is an elliptical shaped table. And so that was designed specifically because it looks like a shield. And so we've incorporated all these different elements into the actual physical way the room is set up to show respect for tradition and culture. But importantly, at the time each court is launched, we have a smoking ceremony. So there's usually an elder of the community involved who is asked to smoke the room, and that's all about making a preparation for a new beginning. And that is a tradition that draws on ancient traditions of Aboriginal people throughout Australia, really.
Thank you, Your Honour. You also mentioned with regards to the smoking ceremony, what does that involve?
Terry might like to answer that.
So a smoking ceremony is a cleansing ceremony that we hold as Aboriginal people when something new happens. So when we're launching a Koori Court in a particular region, we work very closely with the local Aboriginal people and elders of that community. And it's usually an elder of the community who performs that smoking ceremony. And it signifies a new beginning. And people, all people who are present at the launch will walk through the smoke as a sign of respect. So.
Thank you so much, Terry. We've had another couple of questions around matters in the County Koori Court. So what types of matters can be heard in the County Koori Court?
The jurisdiction of the court is open to any indictable matter with the exception of sex offences. The only limitation is where there's a family violence matter. The only court that's gazetted to hear that in the Quarry Court division is Mildura currently. So we hear everything other than matters involving sex, and there are only matters where people have indicated a plea of guilty. I noted in the Q&A that somebody asked about the sentencing orders. We have the same sentencing orders as if the matter were being dealt with in the mainstream. The difference in the Quarry Court is that we will have input from the elders and respected persons as well as other people present in the room as to the utility of using a particular Aboriginal program. For instance, there's a program down at Yarram called Wagungu Nalu, which is a residential-based program that is culturally specific and supported by Aboriginal workers that provides for a place where somebody can go and reside and undertake their community corrections order. So it's somewhat different from a usual community corrections order. It's one that's specifically targeted at Aboriginal offenders, male offenders, to assist them to complete their orders and to support them so that they break the cycle of offending.
So, Your Honour, would you say that is the most common sentence that's given in the County Koori Court?
No. As Terry's already mentioned, we do have a lot of very serious crime that we deal with. And so it's a mix. There are many people who undergo sentences of imprisonment, And then you go down the line from there. You can have a community correction order. You can also have a situation where a hearing is adjourned for up to 12 months to enable somebody to participate in rehabilitation and demonstrate their rehabilitation, so that then they are eligible to be considered for a non-custodial order, and you can have fines and bonds, that sort of thing. But predominantly we are dealing with very serious crimes, so inevitably it involves the imposition of a jail term to be actually served.
Thank you, Your Honour. I'm wondering as well, in the current COVID environment, some of our attendees may or may not be aware that many of our hearings have not been able to take place inside the court building. So we've had to think outside the box about how we can undertake hearings across our court space and deliver that possibly in a virtual or an amended environment, which means that we may be undertaking our hearings over the computer. So in the County Koori Court space, how has that been working? How have we been able to deliver our County Koori Court hearings in a virtual environment?
We've adapted the process, and this might be one, Terry, would you like to talk about this? How
Sure.
It's been adapted to protect the elders, but also to protect the delivery of the service, that is the sentencing conversation.
Yeah, so most of our hearings for the past couple of months have been virtually, where the elders will appear at a Koori Court hearing via a platform called WebEx, which is a digital platform, where they will be sitting in their homes, and they join us in the Koori Court hearing. In the court itself, in person in court, will be the judge, the judge's staff, her tip staff, associate, the accused person and their lawyer or their legal representative. But we also felt that it was very important that that there also needed to be another Aboriginal person in there. So unfortunately, the person who's appearing before the court is unable to have any support people present in court, but they can appear. They can appear in the virtual world as well and join the hearing. But we felt it was really important that there needed to be another Aboriginal person in there. So the Koori Court officer is also present in the court hearing to provide support to the accused person. And to help them understand how it's all going to work, because it is a different way of working. They're not looking at an elder or a judge across the table as we would normally do in the Koori Court hearing, and during the sentencing conversation, they'll be looking at a TV screen where the elder will be appearing via that platform. It is a different way of working. Obviously, the in-person is the preferred option, but during the COVID, we are unable to do that. We need to look after the health and well-being of our Aboriginal elders and other participants as well. So it's a different way that we've had to adapt. It is as powerful as appearing in person, and the feedback we've received from not only the elders but also from the accused person and other participants that it's been working really, really well, and it has preserved the integrity of the County Koori Court sentencing conversation, which is the most important part, where the elder speaks to the accused person about why they're there and the seriousness of the offending. So yeah, thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Terry. Again, I'd like to encourage you all to write in some more questions. I have a few more to go through. But I just wanted to remind everybody to click on the Q&A box below and send through any other questions that you might have about any of our specialist courts programs. I'm going to target Christy at the moment. So sorry, Christy, to put you on the spot. You mentioned earlier about our courts applying principles of therapeutic jurisprudence. Can you talk to us a little bit about what is therapeutic jurisprudence and what are its benefits?
Sure. So therapeutic jurisprudence it looks at the relationship between laws and legal processes and how they can impact on the well-being of people who are coming through the justice system. So this concept is it's embedded in the idea that we can use the law and legal processes as an agent of positive behaviour change. And by doing so, we can really engender the law to make to really help facilitate positive outcomes through the court processes. So in specialist courts or other sort of problem-solving courts approaches, we're really interested in understanding how the relationship that an accused person or a defendant has with the court processes and judicial officers and other legal professions can manifest in positive behaviour changes and can really be utilised to support behaviour change and overall rehabilitation out of the system. So those are the key kind of principles that we're looking at in terms of the application of therapeutic jurisprudence, and it happens in different ways through each of the specialist courts programs that we've outlined.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself for a second. Christy, what would you say are the benefits of therapeutic jurisprudence? So what I mean by that is how do these principles benefit the accused or individuals presenting to the county court?
Sure. So the benefits of therapeutic jurisprudence are that they look at the people coming before the court in a really holistic way, and they look at the different factions of the justice system and the relationship the justice system has with community support agencies and how we can collaboratively work together to help divert people out of the justice system. The benefits of the application of therapeutic jurisprudence are incredibly vast. So they range from, cost savings to the community by reduced time spent in prison, to safer communities by diverting people out of the justice system. It means that people who are coming before the system, often in that revolving door of offending, get the opportunity to address the issues that are underlying their offending behaviour and therefore be diverted out of the system. And that has incredible flow-on effects in terms of, breaking intergenerational patterns of offending and helping people become contributing members of their community and helping them become engaged with their community.
Thank you, Christy. I'm wondering as well, our attendees will be, I'm assuming, from year 10 to year 12, obviously undertaking VCE legal studies. And a lot of what they're learning in class, I know I undertook legal studies when I was in high school also, and we learned a lot about, the traditional court models and the different jurisdictions and so forth. Some of our students might be wondering, why do we need other court models other than the mainstream model? And I'm opening this up to all of our panelists. What do we think overall are, and Christy, you've highlighted the benefits of therapeutic jurisprudence, but I'm also wondering from our other panelists is, why is it, beneficial to have other court models available to the accused or individuals that enter the county court?
I'm happy to answer. Anna, in relation to Aboriginal people, there's no dispute. They're overrepresented in terms of the percentage of people who are held within our criminal justice system, be it in adult prisons or youth detention centres. They are overrepresented. And so the Koori courts are part of an overall strategy that is supported by the Aboriginal community to break that cycle of reoffending so that people can have a life where they are able to utilise and be the people that they can be. A lot of what Christy said about the benefits of therapeutic jurisprudence are part of what motivates our elders and respected persons. They are there representing their community, but also seeking to encourage people to reflect on their behaviours, to think about what it is that they need to do in order to break the cycle of reoffending so that they can be a better person, be it within their own family, within their kinship group, or within their community generally, because the elders are very concerned that the next generation step up and play a leadership role in their community. And so that's what motivates our elders. Our elders are therapeutic jurisprudence practitioners extraordinaire. They really are. They are the ones who dedicate themselves to trying to improve the system so that anyone who comes into contact with the system, they have an opportunity to change, not an opportunity to continue on down the same track. I don't know whether perhaps Terry might like to comment further about that, but it's always been my view that our elders are the strength of Koori Court. They provide guidance for the future for our offenders who come before us, but also they're able to give strong cultural support to those people to try and encourage them to change.
Terry, would you like to add any other comments around that? Oh, you're on mute, Terry.
Sorry, Anna. No, I think Judge has covered it all off. So, yeah, thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Christy, we talked earlier about some of the other programs that are upcoming in our specialist court space. Could you give us a little bit more information around what is drug court so that our attendees can understand, I guess, more practically what drug court is, and also what is a drug treatment order?
Sure. So drug courts essentially combine the coercive powers of the criminal justice system with the best treatment and support that the community has to offer. So a drug treatment order is a judicially supervised intensive application of therapeutic jurisprudence principles, which looks at critical factors such as supervised drug screening, regular appearance before the court, treatment and support to help individuals break the cycle of offending and address the substance abuse issues that have brought them before the court. Drug courts, unlike some of the other specialist courts interventions that we've talked about today, are a sentencing option. So they're really only available to people who are facing an immediately servable custodial term, who meet a range of other eligibility criteria. So this is a cohort for whom their substance abuse issues and their offending behaviour has reached such a critical point that if they're not able to take up the rehabilitation and support that's offered through this order, then they are facing that custodial term. So I think a drug treatment order really offers individuals the opportunity to take up that myriad of support and rehabilitation services that are offered through the court and through that multidisciplinary court approach to help address those issues and ultimately, if they're able to comply with all the requirements of a drug treatment order, which can last up to 2 years and as I mentioned is very intensive, then there's possibilities for how that rehabilitation process can be supported through without the individual needing to serve a custodial term, which is what they might be facing if they weren't able to access this sort of rehabilitative order.
Thank you, Christy. I think it's really exciting to hear about all the innovative and interesting programs that are happening in the county court, specialist court space. What I'm most curious about, and I'm going to whip around to each one of our panelists. I'm going to start with Your Honour, Judge Lawson. What inspired you to work towards your current role in the county court? So that's part one of the question. And part two of my question is, what do you enjoy most and find most challenging about your role?
How long have you got? Look, I started working in the law when I was 21, and it was in the 1980s that I was fortunate. I was given an opportunity of acting on behalf of a group of Aboriginal people through the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service in civil actions. And up until that time, I really didn't have much knowledge or insight into the vast and diverse nature of the Victorian Aboriginal community. And through that work, I covered most of the regions of Victoria. I met many of the Aboriginal Legal Service personnel, and it's interesting. A couple of them are now sitting with me as elders on the court. And it just gave me a real insight into the Victorian Aboriginal legal space, you could say. And I became aware that there was a real disadvantage suffered by many Aboriginal people who were overlooked by the law, particularly in the civil space, because not many people took civil actions, you know, that they'd be involved in serious car accidents or be subjected to other forms of abuse, etc., and not be compensated in a way that other Victorians would be, because they knew their rights. They'd go and see their lawyers and they'd pursue their rights. So it was a really interesting time for me. But the other side of that was that I got to go down to the various regions, and I discovered more about Victorian Aboriginal history and context, and that's continued through to today's position as Koori Court judge and judge in charge. I've worked in Victoria and the Territory, Northern Territory, in the area of criminal law, so that, again, I'm aware of many of the challenges that are faced by Aboriginal offenders. So that I feel like over all the years that I've been working as a lawyer and a judge, and it's now 40 years, 40, that it's all really coalesced, all my knowledge and experience, so that I can apply it to the job that I'm doing currently. What inspires me is being able to sit with the elders and respected persons who are so generous with their knowledge, with their sharing their lived experience, in understanding people who come before the courts, in being able to get them to really reflect and think about behaviour and the need to change, all because they want a better community. And I think we can all learn from that. I certainly am in awe at times of the insight that the elders demonstrate into a person, just knowing a few little things about them. They may only know a few key relationships that those people have in community, and that will open up their eyes to a whole lot of other information and provide an ease of access to be able to speak to that person. No judge can do that, absolutely not. Whereas the elders and respected persons have that ability to cut through and work with and speak directly to people. And it's wonderful to see the response from the individual Koori participants and the respect that's accorded. And so that's what inspires me every day. I get a lot of joy out of just being present, observing how people like our elders and respected persons can make a difference and do make a difference to people's lives. It may not change people's behaviour immediately, but it's certainly, I can see at times the shift in thinking just through having had a proper and open and honest discussion about where a person is in their lives and where they need to head. And so that really is the source of my passion and engagement with this whole area of law, which is quite unique. And as Christy said, we're all rightly proud of what we do in the County Court because we are the only place in Australia that accords this degree of acceptance and respect for the Victorian Aboriginal community and the elders who participate in our court. And it's certainly something that I would recommend to any other state or territory because there's a lot to be gained. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honour. And it's so interesting to hear, you know, how you got to where you are today, and obviously, you know, what inspires you in your day-to-day work. So it was lovely to hear that from you. I'd like to move on to inviting Terry to speak now. Terry, around what inspires you in your current role, or to move into your current role, for example, whichever way you'd like to answer that question. And what's challenging about your role as the County Koori Court coordinator?
Oh, gee, am I on mute? No. So what inspires me is my community. My people inspire me. I've worked for many years with Aboriginal people in the criminal justice system, helping them to navigate the system, helping them to get through orders in various different roles I've had in the community. But like Judge said, elders and respected persons inspire me. I learn from them every day. And, you know, the knowledge that they have, the way that they can connect somebody who doesn't know much about who they are and where they're from. They know that they're Aboriginal people, but may have been disconnected from the community and culture, have lost their way. And the way that the elders are able to connect them back and say to them during a hearing, well, I knew your grandfather. And we have one elder in particular up in the Latrobe Valley who is very powerful, and that the elders actually know. They may not initially know the person that is appearing before them, but once they talk with the accused person about who they are and where they're from, the connections that they can make are just unbelievable. And that is very powerful and can assist somebody to reconnect and move forward with their life. What was the second part of that question? What are some of the challenges? Oh, okay. So some of the challenges are you know, working with the courts over the years, and way back when I first started nearly in the courts over, 18 years ago now, I think about the challenges that I had back then where the Koori Court was just a new program. And it's helping people who have been a different way of working, I suppose, has been challenging. Court staff who may have been with courts for a long time, who are probably entrenched in their ways in some respects, and working with those people to help them understand what the Koori Court is, what we do and what we want to achieve. They are some of the challenges. But the last 18 years have been, yes, I've had some challenges, there's no doubt about that, but the changes that I've seen over the years have been terrific, really, that we have now judicial officers wanting to know more about Aboriginal people. Back then, it didn't happen. They're now seeking us out as Aboriginal people, and when they've got someone appearing before them, not only, I mean, we work with them in the Quarry Court, but there are Aboriginal people who appear in other courts that may not necessarily want to come to Koori Court or may not be eligible to come to Koori Court because of the offences, but the judges are asking us for assistance to help them better understand the person who is appearing before them so that they can make a more informed decision.
Thank you, Terry, for sharing your experience and insights. And I think it really echoes what Your Honour Judge Lawson and Christy also said about how we're so proud of the accomplishments and the successes of the County Koori Court. It's amazing, even from my perspective, to watch, only being in the courts for just over a year, to see some of the amazing successes of the program. So thank you for sharing, Terry. Now, moving on to Christy. So you know the question already. So Christy, what inspires you in your role to undertake your role? And obviously you have, you know, a major leadership role within the County Court, looking after all of our specialist programs. And what do you find challenging in your role?
So I think the thing that inspires me in my role, I've always had a really deep passion for social justice. As I mentioned earlier, prior to coming into the courts, I worked as a forensic drug and alcohol counsellor. And it was really apparent to me when I would sit with people and unpack their story and look at the things that were contributing to their drug use. There was just such consistent patterns around, you know, the impact of cultural trauma and the relationship that has with, you know, drug and alcohol use and mental health issues and disability and homelessness, and how all of these particular issues really kind of intersect and have a complex relationship with the offending behaviours that people present with. So for me, I was really motivated to move into the courts because I saw that there was such a great opportunity for change there, and that when people are given the right tools for rehabilitation and provided with the right supports and scaffolding, that amazing change is possible. And I really wanted to be a part of that change and to help drive that change. And that's something that I've felt very lucky to be able to do in the County Court, especially with all of the, you know, all of the amazing work that's getting done in Koori Court, and also all of the emerging opportunities in the other sort of specialist courts areas. So I've always felt very passionate about that, and it's hard not to feel passionate about that when you see the amazing outcomes that people have, you know, people who might have been entrenched in the justice system for 30 years before they've come before a specialist court, and all of a sudden, you know, they're making changes that they never thought were possible. They're reuniting with family. They're going out and getting employment. You know, these things are incredibly inspirational and help keep you motivated on a day-to-day basis to keep doing this really important work. It's hard work, but it's really critical. I think probably the biggest challenge sometimes can be the stigma that's held about people who come through the justice system, and how that stigma sometimes, the relationship that has with, you know, people's self-belief in change. So that can be challenging. And that's something that, you know, we're working really hard to sort of dispel through all of the work that's being done across specialist courts. I think it's important to note that the work of specialist courts, you know, while it feels amazing to do and it's so inspirational to watch, we do it because it's evidence-based. We do it because it works, and we do it because we know that people will achieve amazing things if they're given these opportunities. So, you know, while that stigma can be difficult, I think it's about continuing to promote the work that's getting done. It's about promoting the outcomes that we're getting and making sure that we're sharing those good news stories so that these sort of interventions do get taken up in other areas in the future.
Thank you, Christy. We're almost getting to wrap up time. We have one more question I'd like to put to our panelists, and then I will go through some closing comments. The final question is again related to Koori Court, and our attendees are wondering whether or not we've observed differences in offending behaviour after participants have attended in the Quarry Court. So essentially the question is, does Quarry Court participation reduce offending? Like, does it impact the recidivism rates?
I'm happy to answer that. We had an evaluation of the pilot program done in the Latrobe Valley which ran between 2008 to 2011. The evaluation report concluded that there was some evidence that the participation in the Koori Court did mean that people adhered to their orders, and also there was a noticeable reduction in repeat offending. It did say, however, that that's not conclusive because it was only a small sample and also it's only a short period of time. The court hasn't got the resources in order to be able to track through every person who comes before the Quarry Court. What we do know, though, is that the judges who sit in the division who impose community correction orders have the ability to do judicial monitoring, which many of them do, particularly if it's a young offender. I know myself, I do. And all I can say is that I've had the benefit of seeing the people participate in the orders that I've imposed. And like many people who come before the court who are disadvantaged, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But overall, I must say, I generally have a very good relationship with the young offenders in particular that I monitor, and I have had a good strike rate in getting them to complete their orders, whether or not they stop offending or go on to lead fulfilling lives is something that I can't say with any great certainty, but I can say from my own experience, they're very respectful. They, generally speaking, get through the orders. Some need more help and encouragement than others. But I have seen, particularly in the regions where community is very strong, I have seen excellent outcomes where people end up having fulfilling lives by being employed, by being a better part of their community. They're not disengaged. And so that's where I see the very real value in Koori Court, in bringing people back into the fold or in establishing connections, which is what Terry was talking about before.
Thank you, Your Honour. We are going to wrap up. So I wanted to thank all of our panellists, Her Honour Judge Lawson, Christy Rowe and Terry Stewart, for their participation and generous sharing of their knowledge today. I want to also thank all the teachers and students who attended the event today and for your great questions. If you haven't already, please visit our website and check out our free educational resources. If you can't make it to some of the other events we have on during the week, we will be making video recordings available. So for example, today's session has been recorded if you want to share that with any other students or individuals in your schools. So the recording should be made available next week. So watch out for an email along with a quick feedback survey that will be sent out. This concludes our event. Thanks again, everyone, for coming along. Thank you again to Her Honour Judge Lawson, Christy Rowe and Terry Stewart. If any of you would like to make any final comments before we finish up? No, we're all happy to finish. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.